From the heart of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., bringing compelling interviews, insightful analysis, taking you beyond the headlines and sound bites into conversations with our nation's leaders and newsmakers, all from a biblical worldview. Washington Watch with Tony Perkins starts now.
We will not wait to take the fight to Donald Trump and the oligarchy. We will not wait. We will not wait to abolish ICE and pass Medicare for all. And no, we will not wait to end the genocide in Palestine.
That was Melot Kidros, a Democratic socialist candidate who won the Democratic primary yesterday in Colorado, defeating a 15-term incumbent. Welcome to this Wednesday, July 1st edition of Washington Watch. I'm Tony Perkins, your host. Thanks for tuning in. Well, coming up, the House and Senate are in recess after efforts to advance the National Defense Authorization Act, along with the Save America Act, fell short in the House yesterday. Oklahoma Congressman Josh Perkins joins us to discuss what comes next for Congress. Plus, Chuck Hurley, the Vice President and Chief Counsel of the Family Leader, joins us to discuss Iowa's new law requiring the in-person dispensing of the abortion pill mifepristone, which takes effect today. And Indiana Congressman Marlin Stutzman joins us to discuss the latest reports on the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. All of that and more straight ahead. Well, let's start with some domestic news. A Democratic socialist has defeated 15-term Congresswoman Diana DeGette in yesterday's Colorado Democratic congressional primary. Joining me now to discuss this is Washington Watch reporter Mary Stackhouse. Mary, walk us through what happened in Colorado.
So, Tony, in a really stunning political reversal, long-term Democratic Congresswoman Diana DeGette was defeated by Melot Kidros, a newcomer backed by the Democratic Socialists of America. Kidros was also endorsed by independent Senator Bernie Sanders, along with Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. While both DeGette and Kidros hold liberal views, Kidros is a Democratic socialist. We're seeing a continued trend of Democratic socialists being elected after a string of recent high-profile victories. Here's Kidros last night during her victory speech.
Nothing is set in stone. We won tonight, but this is about something so much bigger than this moment, than one moment. This is a movement. We are winning from coast to coast, from every level of office. We are taking back our party and our country.
While DeGette and Kidros agreed on many policy matters, they held deeply convicting views on Israel and anti-Semitism. Kidros has described Israel's military operations against Hamas terrorists in Gaza as apartheid and has faced criticism over anti-Semitic comments. We'll be continuing to watch to see if any other Democratic Socialist candidates emerge. Tony?
Yeah, this is going to be it's a very, very interesting primary season. Well, let's turn to some other news. Starting today, women in Iowa seeking abortion pills will be required to have an in-person appointment with a physician in order to receive the drug. Mary, walk us through this new law.
Well, Tony, this new requirement to have an in-person doctor appointment to receive the abortion drug comes after passage of a state law in an effort to keep people from ordering the drugs online. Excuse me. This new law comes as the pro-life movement presses the FDA to reverse its decision in 2022 to remove the in-person appointment requirements with the physician. Over 60% of abortions in the U.S. are caused by the drug mifepristone. The enactment of this new law overlaps with a lawsuit led by Louisiana, which would restore the FDA's safety protocols on the abortion drug that were removed during the Biden administration. We'll definitely continue to stay on top of this and any new developments. Tony?
Yeah, I think what's interesting here is this is a state trying to bring back the medical oversight that has been, the lack of that oversight has led to many of the health complications that women have had. All right, Mary, thanks for the update. Obviously, we're going to be talking about that a little bit more in the program when we talk to the man behind the law there in Iowa, Chuck Hurley. All right, members of Congress won't be returning to Washington until the middle of the month, actually July the 13th. And when they return, there will be a lot of catching up to do. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Congressman Josh Perkins. He serves on the House Homeland Security Committee and the House Budget Committee. He represents the 2nd Congressional District of Oklahoma. Congressman Perkins, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, before we jump into a number of topics that we want to talk about, I think I might get your take on yesterday's Supreme Court ruling on the 14th Amendment and on the birthright citizenship. But I want to first get you to walk us through what happened in the House yesterday, where there was the clamoring for the Save America Act. The Speaker came up with a way of getting that onto the NDAA, but 14 Republicans voted against the rule, basically shutting the House down.
Yeah, you had different groups with different rationales. I think there was at least 3 different reasons. Tony, I was not among those. I've got good friends that were among those. They had different reasons. I would not want to speak for them. I do think that you just had a lot of inactivity in the last several weeks. It's unfortunate. And I hope that in this, July 4th weekend that some discussions are going to be happening. People will come back to some higher principles of things versus some ancillary stuff. The higher principles in what happened, you already alluded to it. What happened yesterday at the Supreme Court, I think makes us really need to man the wall and deal with what does subject to the jurisdiction thereof actually mean? Does it mean that we'll be able to do anything, absent a constitutional change? But, I'm open. The president's tweeting as much. I'm open to hear some lawyers discuss what we can do, how dangerous it is to hear that there are right now in the pipeline 1.5 million Chinese that fall in this category of tourism from overseas, ballots from Beijing, where a mother can come and deliver a child, that child immediately be taken to China and will receive Social Security benefits immediately. And then when they turn 18, they can mail in their ballot and never have been a part of this governance structure. What a crazy ruling. It defies common sense. It defies original intent. And so of all the things that we're kind of dealing with, we need to get to the business of reconciliation 3.0. And I think, even with what happened with Iran and some things that we need to be doing for defense capabilities to be able to replenish munitions, et cetera. That's the real focus, and I'm hopeful when we come back, we're going to get down to business. Okay,
Josh, I want to break down the birthright citizenship ruling yesterday. I want to talk a little bit more about that. But first, I want to go back to the fact that the House, for 2 weeks in a row, have had to leave early. You said there's going to be some conversations taking place. Let me just ask you this. Is this frustrating to members?
Yeah, it's frustrating. But look, I've been one of those, Tony. I'm in the Freedom Caucus. I've been one of those that has wanted to see us do the most conservative things possible. So I don't want to stand in judgment of people that felt like that there was principles that they were standing on. My hope is that we get that dealt with. And so when we come back, people have a break, that we'll really start seeing a well-oiled machine, and whether it's everything that we can do to make sure before we get into November that we've done everything we can in this session to make sure that H.R. 2, that we've done all that we can statutorily.
The H.R. 2, border security.
Yes, to back up the president so that we can do things that, if something was to happen and years down the road, we have another Biden type that tries to, by executive order, undo what is now a 50-year low in illegal crossings at that southern border, we need to be trying to get things in statute as much as we can.
Right.
Tony, there's a bigger conversation here. I have been chewing on this for a week or more. The 60 vote threshold in the Senate, I was just reading Federalist 22. I encourage all of your listeners to go read Federalist 22. He talks about a 2/3 vote, how destructive Hamilton in Federalist 22, how destructive a 2/3 vote would be absent the constitutional provisions. What are the constitutional provisions of a 2/3 vote? Constitutional amendments, impeachment, and so the treaties. The founders with Hamilton and Federalist 22, the founders with James Madison, Federalist 58, and then Federalist 73, written by James Madison, they did fear the excess of lawmaking, but they never intended the day-to-day duties, what you'll find in Federalist 22. They didn't want to steal the energy of the government by hamstringing everything to a 2/3 vote, because that's what the Articles of Confederation were. Federalist 22 lays it out plain. And yet, people are frustrated. We put the majorities together and we can't get anything done. And it's archaic, and I'm going to use the word accident. The filibuster was an accident. Vice President Burr in 1806 said something to a group of senators. They then changed something in their own procedure, left them without the ability to end debate. And it never turned into what it is today until almost 100 years later. But we are doing just the opposite of what Federalist 22, Federalist 73, and Federalist 58 talk about. We have turned things that should be a simple majority vote into a 2/3 vote, and it's the paralysis. It's why you see the paralysis that we have today. And my great concern, Tony, is us fixing that once and for all. And at a minimum, what Mike Lee is talking about, whether it be the talking filibuster or when we go into Reconciliation 3.0, it doesn't need to be a parliamentarian who is not elected by the people. The Constitution says the Senate and the House determine their own rules. It should not be left to a parliamentarian to determine what we're going to do. And that is what's so frustrating, the things that we're doing in this building that are unconstitutional.
Well, to the latter point of the parliamentarian, the Senate can override the parliamentarian. They could do that if they wanted to do that. And I agree with you, because we've seen many, many things in reconciliation, which has been used more frequently as we've had this divided government to try to get things through the process. We just have 2 minutes left, Congressman Burkeen. The birthright citizenship, you pointed out something that has not really been discussed a whole lot, where most people are focused on illegal immigrants that come across the country or come across the border, have a baby in this country, and that baby then becomes an anchor baby, becomes a citizen. But there's a national security issue here that you touched on, and that is the Chinese government, the Communist Party, is intentionally sending people here to this country to have babies, and those babies are becoming American citizens. They're taking them back to China, indoctrinating them in the communist ideology, and then they can come back here to the United States as citizens.
Yes. Mike Davis has been talking about this 1.5 million number. He believes it to be 1.5 million already. What will this translate when they become of voting age at 18? This is dangerous. And so I don't know, there's some ideas floating around. What are we going to do in Reconciliation 3.0? Why we've got to, have everyone in D.C. really structured, really zeroed in? I don't know what we're going to do. I look forward to talking to some lawyers to see without a constitutional amendment what we can do to correct this. I am interested in the concept for reconciliation purposes of a tremendous tax that would be placed upon those coming from China that would try to do this, to make it cost prohibitive, which would burn out because there's a fiscal impact we could recoup. And so that is one option that I'm really interested at this point.
Well, it is a national security issue. It's a real threat, and it's something that we need to be wise to and take action immediately. Congressman,
tax these Chinese that are trying to do this. I mean, let's at least talk conversation.
You're absolutely right. All right, we're out of time. Always great to see you, my friend. Have a happy 4th of July. Folks, stick with us. We're back with more after this.
America. What formed the fabric of our freedom? What stitched together the hearts of those that fastened the stars and stripes? 250 years ago, our founding fathers penned the invisible words woven within every heart, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unite with others who will pledge to defend these eternal truths today at Family Research Council's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, September 24th to the 26th at Cornerstone Chapel in Northern Virginia. In 1776, our country declared independence in reliance upon divine providence. in 2026. In the same spirit, we'll declare dependence upon God by gathering for a time of prayer, inspiration, and action. Use promo code AMERICA at checkout for a $25 discount. Register now at prayvotestand.org.
The family is the oldest, most tested, and most reliable unit of society. It is divinely created and sustained. And yet, there are those who are always tampering with its values and structure. That's why we need organizations like the Family Research Council that can effectively defend and strengthen the family.
Family Research Council began over 40 years ago, like all great movements of God, with prayer. Today, rooted in the heart of the nation's capital, FRC continues to champion faith, family, and freedom in public policy and the culture from a biblical worldview.
FRC is one of those bright lights that helps us focus on true north. And I shudder to think, had they not been here, that it could have been worse.
The Family Research Council has literally millions of people that follow what they do. And that small army makes a difference. Every time I meet with Tony, he prays for me. That matters. This is a grassroots organization. Tony and his team in Washington do a great job, but the power of the FRC is the people.
It's just a wonderful parachurch organization that doesn't seek to take the place of the church, but it seeks to assist the family and the church as we try to move forward successfully, not in a defensive mode, but in an offensive mode as we seek to live our lives according to the Holy Scriptures.
FRC is not going to be whooped. We're going to fight. We're going to take a stand. And again, we don't retreat.
To thousands of Americans who love this country and happen to believe the Bible as a definitive way to live, we will not be silent. We will not shrink back. We will not apologize for biblical truth. We will continue to stand for it. All right, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday. All right, we're getting close to the 4th of July. And to mark America's 250th anniversary, we're offering a special opportunity to save $25 on registration for this year's Pray Vote Stand Summit through July the 10th. Now, I hope you'll be able to join us September 24th through the 26th in Leesburg, Virginia, as we gather for a time of prayer, inspiration, and action. To claim your discount, simply text SUMMIT to 67742. That's SUMMIT to 67742 and register by July the 10th. Well, as the U.S. and Iran continue to hash out a comprehensive long-term agreement, at least that's the stated objective and goal, the situation in Lebanon has been viewed as a potential deal breaker. Now, before last Friday's trilateral agreement between the U.S. and Israel and Lebanon, President Trump floated the idea of Syria handling the Lebanese terrorist group Hezbollah rather than Israel. Now, this apparently was not an off-the-cuff remark, but reportedly stems from ongoing internal discussions. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Congressman Marlin Stutzman, a member of the House Freedom Caucus who is actively engaged in U.S. foreign policy on the Middle East and very vocal in his support for Israel. He represents the 3rd Congressional District of Indiana. Congressman Stutzman, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be with you on this 4th of July celebration of 250 years of America.
Big plans for the weekend?
Yeah, we're actually got a couple of events back home in Indiana. Just great Main Street events. And then, of course, going to be here July 4th for the fireworks over the National Mall. And just truly remarkable that America has, we're celebrating 250 years. And, it's really been God's hand on America that has gotten us this far.
You are absolutely correct. It has been the blessing of God that has sustained us. And our goal, and I know that you share this, is to see America in this 250th year to rediscover the secret, and that is that biblical foundation. Our dependence upon God is what has given us our independence as Americans. I want to jump to the issue of Syria, but before we get into what's happening there in Lebanon, Syria announced the final 70 legislators selected by the interim Syrian president. So they're starting to form post-Assad their government. You've been over there. You've met with the leadership. What's your sense of where things stand now?
Well, Tony, you know, I'm encouraged by some of the decisions that have been made by the Syrian government and the Lebanese government, as well as Israel. I mean, of course, Iran, during the negotiations of the MOU with President Trump and the American diplomats, were trying to drive a wedge between all of this and trying to kind of side rail the entire MOU by any time that Hezbollah would attack Israel and then Israel would strike back at Hezbollah, they would use that saying, you know, look, there goes Israel again. Well, I was there on the border of Lebanon about a month ago or so and saw the attacks that Hezbollah has been doing on Israel. I mean, these are Israeli farmers. These are small little villages in Israel that are being bombarded by Hezbollah on a daily basis. In fact, most of the people aren't even living there right now. So I think what's happening is that, you know, Lebanon is saying we want help getting Hezbollah out of here. We know Hezbollah is the cancer that's in Lebanon. And the fact that Syria even said, hey, we don't want to have anything to do with this, I think shows some wisdom on Syria's part that they don't want to engage and meddle in other people's affairs. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, they're weak, but also they don't want to get involved in these conversations when they're trying to get their own country back on track.
Yeah, I think there's also a history there, too, of some previous history with Syria and Lebanon. But you're absolutely right. They've got enough to deal with within their own borders. There's been some concern that Israel has been restrained by the United States, pressured to kind of back off of Hezbollah. I mean, you laid it out perfectly. Iran is using Hezbollah to try to destabilize the talks that are taking place and derail them. I think Israel could easily take care of Hezbollah if they're allowed to work with the Lebanese government to do so.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Tony. I mean, Israel has such remarkable capabilities, and that's what they're asking for is, you know, look, I mean, we can help take care of this, we can work together, but we're not going to sit here and keep taking attacks from Hezbollah on Israelis and on our land in Israel, on their land in Israel, on a daily basis. And finally, you know, through the negotiations with Marco Rubio and President Trump, we got them to a point where they weren't at least attacking Israel, but we'll see. This is, you know, it's going to be very tenuous for a period of time here. I think that President Trump has done a remarkable job of hitting Iran and the IRG so hard that they have very few options. But again, these are zealots. These are religious zealots that they will die before compromising anything with the West. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on them.
We just have 2 minutes left, Congressman Stutzman. I want to turn to another topic. The Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa released a report yesterday that says that nearly 80,000 people in Nigeria have lost their lives as a result of the attacks that have taken place over the last 6 years. Disproportionately, it's Christian civilians that are affected. Now, I know the Trump administration has declared it as a country of particular concern, but the violence continues. What would you like to see happen there?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, I actually met with the First Lady of Nigeria several months ago, and she's Christian, married to a Muslim president there, and it's which seems complicated in itself. I wasn't too happy with some of the answers that she gave to us over dinner, saying that there wasn't a genocide of Christians. That's just not believable. I've got several good friends on the ground in Nigeria, and we know that Boko Haram and other Muslim terrorist organizations are attacking Christians. And President Trump has done more, you know, hitting back at them in some cases. But, you know, these, again, kind of back to the IRGC mentality in Iran, the same mentality is in Nigeria, where they are basically requiring Christians to convert to Islam or die. And we got to be praying for the Christians in Nigeria, but we can also take action. And President Trump has done some. It's a big country, 250 million people. It's a big task, yes.
The largest on the African continent, which is what makes it so important. I think the economic levers are something else that we can be using even more aggressively. Congressman Stutzman, thanks for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Tell your wife we said hello.
Will do. Happy Independence Day and happy 250.
All right, take care. All right, folks, we're back with more after this. Don't go anywhere.
The Stand Firm app brings trusted Family Research Council resources together in one place. Stay informed with news articles from the Washington Stand, watch interviews from Washington Watch, explore courses produced by FRC, and find many other resources to equip you to engage culture and government from a biblical perspective. Download the Stand Firm app today by texting APP to 67742 or by searching for Stand Firm in your app store.
Have you noticed the upsurge in gambling ads? How could you not? The ads are big, bold, shiny. They virtually glitter with gold. Well, fool's gold, because as they say, the house always wins. But some lessons are easily forgotten, and nowhere is this more evident than the rise of the sports betting industry. Since 1992, 39 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized sports betting, and as a result, more than $600 billion has been wagered on sports since 2018. Now, Christians should be instinctively concerned about the latest growth in gambling. For one, gambling profits are often losses for those least able to afford them, causing unnecessary friction within families. Secondly, it's inherently exploitative. The gambling industry necessarily harms one person to benefit another. Gambling offers me the chance to gain at your expense. For me to win, you must lose. But even if I win, I lose the dignity and satisfaction of earning what I have. By greenlighting gambling, cities and states across our nation take the short-term gain of a little extra revenue for the long-term loss of strong communities. States think they're winning when in the long run, really, they are losing. Remember, the house always wins. Follow Family Research Council's news outlet, The Washington Stand, for more stories that speak out against policies undercutting strong families and strong communities. Because the only house that truly wins is a house built on a solid rock, God Himself.
Welcome back to Washington Watch. Check out the website, TonyPerkins.com, or better yet, get the Stand Firm app. Go to the App Store and download the Stand Firm app. When we think of the birth of America, we rightfully think of the men who put their names on the Declaration of Independence, the 56 men. But long before those signatures were finalized, a different type of public discourse was already reshaping the priorities of the colonies. Pastors played an instrumental role in bringing about the American Revolution. Our Mary Stackhouse looks at the influence, impact, and legacy of those brave pastors and the lead that they took in shaping public opinion.
Peter was very much a man of faith.
As we commemorate our nation's 250th anniversary, history informs us that the true revolution didn't begin with shots fired at war, but with a profound change in belief driven by the Bible. Our nation's second president, John Adams, asserted the war for independence was not the actual revolution.
The revolution, he said, really, it was born in the minds and the hearts of the people through really the preaching of the patriot pastors, as well as other patriots who were engaged at that time.
The shift was fueled by a major change in the religious convictions of the people. Pastors played a significant role in preparing the public for the idea of independence. Dr. Jonathan Mayhew of Boston was one of the key pastors who played a role in bringing about the American Revolution. In one of his influential printed sermons, he cited Romans 13, 1-8, explaining what the Bible has to say about government, both good and bad, and how we're to respond to it.
Pastors preached a political worldview that formed this nation. America was born in the pulpit. And pulpits, as one historian said, pulpits aflame with righteousness.
The British cracked down on Boston after the Tea Party on December 16, 1773. In 1774, Parliament passed 4 punitive laws, derisively referred to by the colonists as the Intolerable Acts. The acts also allowed the confiscation of property to house British troops and closed down Boston's harbor, which halted all trade until the town reimbursed for the tea. More British troops were sent to enforce military rule. In response, Patriot pastors took to their pulpits.
One pastor influenced maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe 300, maybe more people in that church. And those are the ones who were out there on the commons shouldering muskets and going into battle against the British. So the British really wanted those pastors to stop doing what they were doing, because they were the ones who were the rabble rousers. They were the ones leading the charge. They were the ones at the tip of the spear.
Many colonial parsons, or pastors, if you will, fought in the Revolution, and many of them died because of their commitment to liberty. They believed liberty was sacred. Not just sacred, that it was something worth putting your life on the line for and dying for.
One of the most influential pastors who helped bring about the revolution was Peter Muhlenberg.
Peter Muhlenberg understood that there's no separation between being a Christian and involvement in principles of government.
Peter Muhlenberg was a Lutheran pastor, a military general during the American Revolution, and he served as a senator and congressman. He was also known as the Patriot Pastor. A statue celebrating the life of Peter Muhlenberg stands at Muhlenberg Park in Washington, D.C. Another statue of him stands in the Capitol crypt beneath the rotunda on Capitol Hill. John Muhlenberg is a fourth-generation grandson of the infamous Peter Muhlenberg.
As a patriot and pastor, he took a call in Woodstock, Virginia. Through there, he met a lot of the people we would call founding fathers. He met George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Peter was elected to the House of Burgesses. Peter would have also have met Patrick Henry. He was likely present at the liberty or death speech that Patrick Henry gave in Richmond, Virginia. So Peter was a man of the cloth, and also very much a community leader at this time. In 1776, Peter got word and came out to his town in Woodstock and recruited 300 volunteers to go off and fight in the Revolutionary War.
On January 21st, 1776, Peter Muhlenberg delivered a powerful farewell sermon that inspired those 300 to fight for freedom.
His farewell sermon, when he came into the church that Sunday morning in January, was taken out of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. He preached through the whole chapter. When he finished, he took off his robe. He was already dressed in full uniform as a colonel in the Continental Army. He said in a voice that thundered, in the language of Holy Writ, there is a time for all things, a time to pray and a time to fight. He said the time to fight has now come, and he was willing to fight, to put his life on the line for liberty.
Peter Muhlenberg's legacy is a reminder of the sacred freedom secured through the Revolution and a symbol of our nation's Christian heritage.
What I hope the people take away is that when they see the statue and see the pictures that are there in the U.S. Capitol, that they understand the gift that we have been that we, the citizens of the United States, have been given. We are able to freely practice our religion here in this country. We are able to share our views without fear of repercussions. One thing that we really need to hold on to and dear is the liberty and the freedom that we have been given.
Muhlenberg's life serves as a reminder that the preservation of liberty requires the same moral conviction and courage that first ignited the American Revolution. For Washington Watch, I'm Mary Stackhouse.
Great package, Mary. Well, to safeguard our freedom as Americans, as we reach this 250th milestone, we need to revisit the real revolution that John Adams spoke of. The true liberty is sustained by the same source that first ignited it, and that is the Word of God. And if you'd like to discover more about our biblical heritage and its application to our government, the history in this country, and how we go forward on that foundation, we have a course, God and Government, that I've put together over the years. In fact, House Speaker Mike Johnson has been through the course and actually helped me teach it. You can find out more. Text COURSE to 67742. That's COURSE to 67742. And find out more about America's biblical heritage and what the Bible has to say about government and your role in it. Again, that's COURSE to 67742. All right, don't go away. On the other side of the break, we're going to be talking about a new law in Iowa protecting women from abortion materials in the mail. Don't go away.
One nation under God. America's undeniable foundation of faith.
Before America was exceptional, America was prayerful. Just as Paul urged Timothy, first of all, that prayer, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, our founding fathers understood deeply the command to be devoted to prayer. This great American experiment began as a mighty appeal to heaven, petitioning the Lord of heaven's armies to intervene for the righteous cause of liberty. As war began to sweep across the colonies, the Continental Congress called days of fasting and prayer in their fight against the British. The Lord answered, and the colonies prevailed. Yet in spite of victory, our founding fathers knew that dependence on God in prayer was not to be forgotten. With countless challenges facing our young nation, John Adams declared national days of solemn humiliation, fasting, and prayer to directly address the many trials and call on Americans to seek mercy and restoration. Years later, in one of America's darkest hours, Abraham Lincoln stood upon this unshakable foundation by calling the nation to repentance, declaring, "It is the duty of nations as well as of men to confess their sins in humble sorrow and to recognize that those nations only are blessed whose God is the Lord." We have seen the hand of God answer prayers again and again as our nation has turned to Him. However, the wise warning of Ronald Reagan still stands. If we ever forget that we are one nation under God, we will be a nation gone under. Through war, uncertainty, and turning points in history, many of our leaders have known where to turn, and now it's our turn. We echo the call of George Washington 250 years ago, humbly to supplicate the mercy of Almighty God, that it would please Him to pardon all our manifold sins and transgressions, and finally establish the peace and freedom of America upon a solid and lasting foundation, the undeniable foundation of faith.
Looking for a trusted source of news that shares your Christian values? Turn to the Washington Stand, your ultimate destination for informed, faith-centered reporting. Our dedicated team goes beyond the headlines, delivering stories that matter most to believers. From breaking events to cultural insights, we provide clear, compassionate coverage through a biblical lens. Discover news you can trust at the Washington Stand, where faith and facts meet every day.
All right, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. All right, each week we're pleased to share how our Pray Vote Stand chapters initiative is growing and to recognize our newest chapters. This week we welcome our newest chapter in Williamson County, Texas. We're excited to have them join this growing initiative of gathering organizations rooted in local churches. The Pray Vote Stand chapters are rooted in a local church in counties all across America. Our goal over the next 10 years is to see one chapter, at least one chapter in every county in America. If you'd like more information on the chapters, how you can start one or join one, text chapters to 67742. That's chapters to 67742, or go to frc.org/chapters. Our word for today comes from Psalm chapter 6. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, nor chasten me in your hot displeasure. Have mercy on me, O Lord, for I am weak. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is greatly troubled. When sin has separated us from God, we feel it in our bones. It is spiritual, emotional, and physical. But notice that as David cries out to the Lord, he shifts the focus from his condition to God's character. Return, O Lord, deliver me, O save me for your mercy's sake. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In the grave, who will give you thanks? God is our defender because he is merciful and he is worthy of praise. As David recorded in 2 Samuel chapter 22, he says, I will call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. David's appeal to God was about God. Restore me by your mercy so that the praise you deserve will continue. In our prayers, like our praise, the focus should be on the Lord. To find out more about our journey through the Bible, text Bible to 67742. That's Bible to 67742. Also, as we are in the book of Psalms this summer, what I'm calling the Oasis of Psalms, well, I encourage you to invite a friend to join us Simply text Psalms to 67742. That's Psalms to 67742. All right, starting today, a new law in Iowa is in effect that requires the abortion drug mifepristone to be prescribed and dispensed in person by a medical professional. Now, the question is, why is this needed? Shouldn't this simply be common sense? Shouldn't it be happening anyway? Joining us to discuss this, Chuck Hurley, Vice President and Chief Counsel for the Family Leader based in Iowa. He drafted the Iowa bill that went into effect today. Chuck, welcome to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Hi, Tony. Great to see you again, brother.
So tell us about this bill that took effect today.
We've been working on this for several years, actually, with some national partners, with lawyers. And it's a crisis, as you well know, to have pills being shipped in from all over the country, even all around the world. And they come in to women or girls who go online, or they come into pimps and human traffickers and boyfriends. And so totally unregulated. And as you also know, and I'm sure you've done segments on this, our friend Ryan Anderson and others have studied this carefully and found that about 1 in 10 women have a severe medical problem when they take these pills. And so women or girls who have ectopic pregnancies can bleed out, hemorrhage, sepsis, miscarriage, all sorts of problems come from these pills. And so obviously the worst part of these pills is the baby dies, but then in hundreds of thousands of cases, the mom is injured as well.
Right.
And so we're doing everything we can to keep these black market abortion pills out of Iowa.
Yeah, just for the benefit of our listeners and viewers that may not have heard us talk about this before, because we've talked about it a lot. Originally, when this was approved back during the Clinton administration, heavy oversight, and it was only authorized up to 6 weeks of pregnancy. It was later expanded to 10 weeks. But here's a big issue with no medical oversight, is that some of these women are taking this pill way beyond that 10-week period, in which, as you pointed out, this is where one of the complications comes in, because the baby is too large once it's killed by this drug to make its way out on its own, and the woman has complications with that. Let me ask you this question, Chuck, because, in my home state of Louisiana, we've been fighting the federal government. They've sued the FDA over this because the FDA is allowing this drug to be prescribed without medical oversight, but also the Department of Justice refusing to enforce the law that prohibits this from being sent through the mail. What's the plan for the state of Iowa to stop this from coming in as it's coming into other pro-life states?
Yeah, Tony, as you said, the federal agencies really should exercise their strong hand and deal with this in all 50 states. Unfortunately, they're not. So state by state by state, we legislatures are having to address this. And our plan is pretty simple. It's if someone sends these pills to a woman or girl who's not licensed, who's not in person, then if there's any complications, they are strictly liable. They're by law, they have committed a civil wrong, and they can be sued, and damages can be sought, and attorney's fees can be awarded to the injured party. So it's an effort to try to do what the federal government has not yet begun to do, and states are having to do this because the problem continues and even expands.
So it goes beyond the criminal aspects from the civil, allowing, as we've seen before, once the trial lawyers get involved, it actually makes things happen. That's one of the pivotal moments with the whole transgender issues. We've been fighting this for years now. When the trial lawyers realized that there was a money trail here, we've saw the first major decisions, $1 million awards made for these young people who were minors, led down this path, and they have won these malpractice cases. So I think this is a smart approach when the government won't do its job. I think there is a role. I've long been supportive of many in the law profession that are anchored in biblical truth because the Scripture speaks to making people whole, and this is one way to do it.
That's exactly right. And as you well know, and most of your listeners probably know, even when there is a criminal penalty attached, states like New York are shielding people like Dr. Carpenter. I don't even like to call her a doctor, but these providers from out of state that ship pills in willy-nilly, and they refuse to extradite under criminal law. So really a civil action judgment can be rendered, and then under the full faith and credit clause of the United States Constitution, those judgments can and should be enforced in other states. So we're hoping that the money penalty through civil judgments will be enough to persuade these outlaw black market abortion pill providers to stay out of Iowa, and hopefully the other, at least red states, will pass something similar.
Are you in discussions with other states that are looking at this?
Yes, we have had inquiries come into us, and when we first started this process, we were talking to other states who had already passed something similar. And so, yeah, I think this is, unfortunately, it's a slow, difficult process to sue and get a judgment and get it enforced under the full faith and credit clause. And it may end up before the Supreme Court of the United States under that provision of the U.S. Constitution. But as a lawyer, I've dealt with full faith and credit clause cases before, and I do think that we have a really strong case, and we're hoping that we'll ring the bell, so to speak. We'll get some big judgments, and that'll convince these people to stay out of Iowa.
Yeah, I think it's a great approach. I want to go to some that the critics of this law have said. I was reading up on some of the press out of Iowa, and it says the Democrats and reproductive health care advocates said the law is a means for further restricting abortion access and will make it extremely difficult for people in rural areas to access health care, particularly in areas of Iowa which face maternal and OBGYN health care shortages. How is getting a pill in the mail fixing health care in Iowa? I mean, that's what this is. This is turning mailboxes. What they've done through this abortion pill is turn mailboxes into abortion clinics. I mean, how is that helping women?
It doesn't help women, Tony. And this is George Orwell, up is down, dark is light. Calling the killing of innocent babies health care obviously is an abomination to the Lord, and it's a twisting of any sane sense of the English language. But, there are some girls who are scared and who live in rural parts of Iowa who are going to want to, quote, take care of the problem, unquote, and stay quiet and get these pills shipped into them. But they're harming themselves. They're killing their babies. And the law is designed, in part, to punish evil and to reward the good. And it's evil to jeopardize these women's health, and it's obviously evil to kill babies. So it's not health care. It's what government should do, and thank God the legislature passed this. The next to the last bill that passed this year, the governor signed it. We've got a very pro-life state. We've got a heartbeat law in place, but the heartbeat law was being ignored or vitiated by these mail-in black market pills.
Chuck Hurley, I want to thank you for joining us and commend you on getting this law passed there in the state of Iowa. You've been at it for a long time, and we appreciate your leadership.
Well, we appreciate your leadership, Tony. You're a blessing to the kingdom and a blessing to God's civic institution of government.
Well, I appreciate that. Chuck, have a great 4th of July.
You too.
I want to continue this conversation a little bit more about this pill. I know I talk about it a lot, but it is important. As we celebrate 250 years of freedom, and we were talking earlier with Congressman Stutzman about God's blessing on our country, I'm hard-pressed to think that God's blessing will continue on this country when we are increasing the shedding of innocent blood in our country, not decreasing, even though we overturned Roe. Now, I've talked about this as well, but we did a poll. I don't think I've talked about the poll on the program. But we did a poll asking people, do you think abortion rates have gone up, down, or stayed the same? Well, what we found out is only 18% of Americans realize that abortion rates have actually gone up since the overturn of Roe. And the reason is mifepristone, the abortion pill, which now is about 60, somewhere between 65 and maybe even 70% of all abortions come through this abortion pill. And this is obviously, as was talked about, dangerous to the women, but it's being used in some very devious ways. And I want to bring in Chris Gasek, senior fellow for regulatory studies here at the Family Research Council, who's long been studying mifepristone and the FDA and the approval of this. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today. We talked about this earlier in the week, but I want to unpack this just a bit more in the few minutes we have. The Army captain we talked about, who was about a week or so ago was charged and convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison for drugging his partner, who was a junior enlisted soldier. He got this drug through the mail using a false name and put it into her drink and killed her, I believe it was a 23-week-old baby in utero. This is not a one-off. This is happening frequently now.
One of the things I think that's going on is that the pattern all across the country is so, it's really expanding. It's like you can't, the FDA is not going to be able to just ignore the fact that it is being used as a poison, right? And people are ordering it and they're using.
I mean, it's a tool for an assassin. This is an assassin. Right. I mean, this is not a one-off. I mean, we've seen it in Texas, we've had it in Louisiana, we've had it in states all across the country that we know of, and there's probably many cases we don't know about.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's one of the things I just want to point out was that when all this started, when the drug was approved in 2000, I think the doctors and we all sort of knew, but we didn't talk about the fact that this could be done because I didn't want to ever give anybody an idea about doing something like this. But remember, one of the things that was also going on in the first Obama regulations is that in 2000, the Clinton regulations, you had a much more lockdown system. You know, you had to go and see a doctor. It had to be dispensed. You had to take the drug in the presence, the first drug in the presence of the physician. So there was what was tighter control. And the ultimate goal, I think, of the FDA from the very beginning was always to reduce the amount of oversight and then to reduce eventually a kind of a laissez-faire access to this drug so that essentially women would become their own abortionists. And this would occur through the mail. And that's what essentially happened in the Biden administration. But what you see happening in that kind of a system is that there's just no medical oversight. There's no health care being provided. Like, go ahead. I'm sorry. And anybody can get access to the drug and poison other people. And we're seeing a lot of this.
So those who are in charge of quote unquote health care or overseeing the pharmaceuticals in this country, they are advancing a political agenda above the health and well-being of certainly the children, but of women as well, because they want to advance this agenda of abortion without restriction.
Absolutely. No, I think the more you study it and as you go back and you look at it, I learned a lot about the FDA and the government from COVID. I mean, and we just don't think in these devious ways of these long-term plans. But I think that was what was set up, and then what we found out to be the case about mifepristone. It was a long-term plan.
And unfortunately, it's being facilitated by the current FDA under the Trump administration, leaving what Biden put in place still there. Chris Gasek, thanks so much for joining us. All right, he's done a lot of study on mifepristone and all the way back to the very beginning. He's pretty much written the book on it. All right, folks, out of time for today, but this is another thing to add to your prayer list. Pray for our country. This is an important issue. All right, I leave you with that. Pray, and you have the opportunity, vote, and then, no matter what, stand on biblical truth.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council. To support our efforts to advance faith, family, and freedom, please text GIVE to 67742. That's GIVE to 67742. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information, please visit TonyPerkins.com.